Welcome to Momentum, a motorsports podcast powered by High Gear Success. I'm your host, Heather Wilson Schiltz. Here we share the stories and strategies that keep the world of motorsports moving forward. And today I'm chatting with Erik Stephens, Director of eCommerce for BWI, which is the parent company for DENALI Electronics and Vision X brands. So thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Heather.
So you oversee a huge digital ecosystem across multiple brands, multiple platforms, multiple markets, international markets. So how did you find yourself in this role?
It was a bit by accident, like a lot of fun things that happened. But backing up a long time, about 20 years, I organized a group buy for some motorcycle accessories from Germany, from a little tiny company with 6 people called SW Motec. And I thought that was it. But over the next few months, I started organizing more group buys for more and more people, set up a little tiny website as a side thing that I called Twisted Throttle. And fast forward about 2 years, and I was making more money at that than my day job. So I left the responsible career that my parents helped pay for with college, and started playing with motorcycles and outletting them for a living. So over the next 10 years, started importing and distributing about a dozen different brands, and eventually figured out that there were some product types and some opportunities that we didn't have a good supplier for. One of them was lighting. And so we started taking what we knew about vehicle specific hardware and making things fit and giving a really good customer experience to solving the problem of how to do vehicle specific wiring, vehicle specific mounts, and helping people be safer on the road, by seeing it being seen. So that was what eventually became DENALI. And DENALI Electronics as a lighting company grew and eventually became much larger than the original Twisted Throttle company. And about 4 years ago now, I sold both companies to BWI. And it's been an interesting journey of scaling since then, because they asked me to start working or overseeing e-commerce and digital marketing for a bunch of brands outside of the motorcycle industry and the 4x4 industrial and side-by-side space. And they asked to scale these brands globally. Started to work on ways to effectively translate into 20 languages, localize currencies, try to figure out how to advertise in cultures and languages that I was not a part of. So it's been a fun learning journey as we've figured out how to take what worked here and start to move it to a much larger space.
Well, and that's a ton of different pieces between like kind of seeing an opportunity in the industry, researching it. It sounds like some product development. And then like, oh, by the way, we're also going to sell it and market it. Like just no big deal, just like the jobs of 1 billion people combined into one. So do you kind of enjoy that challenge?
Absolutely. I think I have the most fun when there's a little bit of technical work on digital marketing and websites, a little bit of work doing product development, and a little bit of work building relationships with people that, we're excited to work together with on the project, whether it's an ambassador or, a dealer or, anyone else in the industry. It's just really fun when it all comes together as part business, part creative, part social.
Yeah, I would say most people don't have the type of brain that can kind of do all of those things well. Like myself, I would consider not very technical. Like I love the creative marketing side of it, but like product development, like not a chance. So that's pretty cool that you're able to kind of bring all those things together and then have built these things from the ground up and then be able to like sell and still be involved years later is really cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And I've been lucky enough to partner with folks that are really good at what they do. You know, any one person can only take something so far, and then you've got to build a team that has experts in each thing. So as we started growing Denali, I initially hired a really talented designer named Nate Bastian out of the Rhode Island School of Design, and he's grown into the brand manager and has really taken over a lot of the product development and helped that grow. You know, so each piece of the business has been something that at a certain point you got to find someone that you partner with and watch as they do something that you probably couldn't have done all by yourself.
Letting go can be a challenge, but also I love delegating stuff. And I love what you said, kind of like partnering with people. If I have something that I'm not good at, like I love being able, if I can afford to outsource it to somebody that is good at that piece, because that's going to result in a better end product.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that being at BWI has taught me is that one person or one team can only take it so far. When they asked to start taking brands into multiple countries, working with multiple brands, we had to start figuring out how to create systems and then organize brand teams with specific skills, let them go do their own thing. It's amazing what you can achieve if you start letting go and letting other people that are maybe newer to it than you grow it and see where they can run with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the systems part is something that I've been trying to work on now, 5 years into owning my business. It's like everything revolves around me, right? Like if I'm not doing it, it's not happening. I would like to eventually be able to get to the point where I can outsource a little more stuff. And that requires processes and explanations and systems, like you said.
Yeah. It's easier for me to get out of my own head if I'm hiring people for outsourcing things that have a like a normal commercial background. They don't necessarily know our business or don't know our brands, but they have a normal skill. It might be working by websites or doing email marketing or what have you. And then what I have to do to make them successful is figure out how to turn it into something that you don't need that insider information to be able to execute what's needed. And if you can start to take skills that people have that are sort of, I guess, a little more standard and figure out how to leverage those, that can really help you to scale.
You also mentioned to me previously in like bringing in people and building a team that for DENALI Electronics, like the team is really motivated by rider safety. So can you kind of speak to how those real world rider experiences influence the products that you guys are creating?
Absolutely. So way back when Twisted Throttle was the core business, we started experimenting with lighting, and very early on, one of the early members of the team was in a fatal motorcycle where there was a truck coming opposite direction, didn't see it, and that had a huge effect on everybody in the company. I don't think it's a unique story. I think most people that are in the motorcycle industry or within it as a hobby for a long time know someone that has not been seen by another driver and has had a near miss or a not near miss. And so, our team, we definitely have a lot of fun. We go out and ride. We do silly things with lights, with motorcycles. But deep down, there's a motivation to try to make everybody safer doing this thing that we love. It kind of started with being able to see better when we were riding at night, with the forward lighting. Then we started making insanely loud horns. More recently, we've we've had a few near misses within our social circle of motorcyclists coming to an intersection and not being seen from the side. So we've started to really work on developing side visibility, rear visibility lighting, so that it's not just these big blazing lights going straight down the road, but it's also illumination that's going to help you be conspicuous and be noticed from 360 degrees around. Started working on that and doing research into which colors, which positions of light are most noticeable. Leveraging some of what NHTSA has already done, because their research budget is way bigger than ours, and trying to find ways to make it really practical to have illumination solutions that are easy to install, but are not just looking pretty, but really put the light where it needs to be to help you see it be seen.
Well, and I think you hit on some things there too of like, you said like looking pretty, but also being seen. It is crazy. Like sometimes the way bikes are manufactured, like how little lighting there is on them, especially like tail lights. I think about too, how tiny some of them are. Like if I'm following somebody on a motorcycle in a car, like how you barely see it. But people also want their motorcycles to look cool. So it's got to be a both and situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The regulations on lighting in different countries are kind of strange. Like in the US, they regulate the size of your taillights and turn signals almost more than they regulate the lighting intensity. If you look at the European Union, I think they've done a little bit better job where they've regulated not as much the size of the lamp, but the result of the light that's being sent towards the other drivers. So they've managed to get a lot more small lights in their region that are very, very effective. And in the US, we've still got larger lights, often halogen, that just aren't very visible during the day.
I've never really, honestly, before this moment, thought about lighting so deeply. And like you said, like the different colors or the intensities. I mean, what comes to mind for me now is not even necessarily on a motorcycle, but just driving at night in a car. The newer cars that I see, and I say newer, but probably at least 10 years old, have those really bright white lights that almost blind you as you're like oncoming traffic, versus the older style that are more of like a yellow light. So I don't know if, technical wise, what you would have to say about that.
Well, the older, more yellowish ones that don't really light up the road are probably old school halogen bulbs, like H4 bulbs that were probably in cars 20 years ago. And those have a more yellow color that's not quite as effective, but they just don't put out a whole lot of light. When you get into the whiter light, it's probably an LED. And if it's blinding you, it's probably not a street legal light. There are a ton of LED replacement bulbs out there that don't actually result in, like if you just swap out your halogen bulb on an old headlight, put in an LED bulb, it's probably going to put light in all the wrong places because the reflector wasn't designed for that sort of light source. Replacement headlights, if you're shopping for that sort of thing, you should make sure that the headlights have homologations on them for meeting DOT low beam and high beam standards. Auxiliary lights are usually using SAE in the US. And then in Europe, it's easy. It just has a little E on it for E-mark. So it's a little bit easier to recognize. But the lights that they're homologated, sounds boring, if it's not for off-road use only. But it actually puts the light where you need it for a low beam or for a high beam, and it keeps it out of oncoming drivers' eyes, which is a hazard if you've got light that's just sort of spraying everywhere. So one of the things that we're really careful about when we're designing new lighting is building a beam pattern that's effective at illuminating the road whether you need a low beam, fog beam, or long distance high beam pattern, but also keeping it out of oncoming drivers' eyes, which is sort of the opposite effect of what you want to achieve.
Can you speak to homologation a little bit? I'm somewhat familiar with it on the racing motorcycle side of things about, homologating different parts. But can you, to somebody that generally doesn't know what that is, can you explain that process?
Homologation is essentially designing your lighting product so that it meets street legal standards for use on public roads. And when you're on a public road, you need to make sure that your low beam only is about half of the bottom half of the light field. So it's not going up into oncoming driver's eyes and blinding them so that they veer off into a tree or something.
We're into you.
Yeah, exactly. High beam patterns can fill up most of the road, depending on the country. Sometimes those long distance patterns will sort of have a little carve out for where oncoming drivers are so that it will leave a little bit of a blank spot. Fog beams will have that upper cut off because it's trying to keep the light low and broad. Because if you use a high beam pattern, basically a laser beam going downfield in the fog, it's just going to reflect back and blind you, essentially. So homologation is all about putting the light where mad scientists of lab coats have figured out it needs to meet a specific purpose to keep you and other drivers safe.
Have modern motorcycles become easier or harder to develop these accessories for with all the electronics that they have going on that are just like standard on the bikes now? Has that changed your process or product development at all?
It's the amount that the electronics have become difficult to work on is probably the reason our company exists. Back 20 years ago, all the wires on the bike were we'll call them dumb 12-volt wires, where each function of each light or each thing on your bike just had a 12-volt power wire that was either on or off, and you could just tap into that and power other accessories. So it was pretty easy to Frankenstein your bike into having all the electrical stuff you wanted, as long as you didn't exceed the power handling of
I was going to say, as long as you didn't drain your battery, because
we use the right fuse and don't drain the battery, and you'll probably be okay. Newer bikes that came out, at this point it's probably about 10-15 years ago, the CANbus technology started finding its way from the auto industry into motorcycles. And BMW was one of the first brands that really applied this. But what CANbus technology does is it's actually pretty cool. You can run power and computer signals down the same wire. So you could have 10 different accessories on one power wire, all doing different things because there's a computer signal going through that same power wire. And so you need less wiring on the bike. You can get automatic error codes that come back. But the challenge becomes if you just tap into those wires, well, now the bike throws error codes, goes into limp mode. There is no sort of clean power to do each of these dedicated accessory functions, like a set of auxiliary lights or an extra set of turn signals or whatever else you want to attach to your vehicle. So we started partnering with a company that was really good at doing CANbus diagnostic tools, and developed this mad scientist thing called the CANsmart. And so this little device would plug into your ECU port on your motorcycle, and it reads all these complicated signals that are coming off of your bike, and it knows when you're turning on your original turn signal, it knows when you're turning on your high beam, knows your lean angle, knows if it's daytime or nighttime based on the light sensors on your bike. Basically anything that your bike knows, this device knows. And we can use those signals control accessories. And so we had 4 outputs initially, 4 different things. We figured that would be enough. Well, it's never enough. So we recently started figuring out how to send computer signals into our own accessories. And now we can have a nearly unlimited number of accessories powered by this one controller. It's all plug and play, keeps you from cutting up your wiring harness. It sounds simple. It's really simple from a customer standpoint. It's not easy to reverse engineer and decode all of those different motorcycles signal sets, because none of them are the same. And so we eventually made something that's a very simple system to be able to power just about any electrical accessory you want on a motorcycle. But it was not simple to create.
It sounds crazy to even like think about. So that's really fascinating though. So you talked about it being simple for the customer, which is always a plus, right? But also like just even getting them to buy, I feel like sometimes people have really complex, we start speaking in marketing terms, buying journeys. They research a lot of things heavily before purchasing. So how do you kind of make sure that you're hitting on all those points without like oversimplifying the product itself, like making it easy for them, but still showcasing all the features?
Well, maybe show and not tell. I think we've always kind of taken a website and YouTube first approach to all the products we carry and develop. And so when we come out with a new product, rather than trying to build a product description that's death by features and benefits, try to take real world situations. What are the real problems people are trying to solve? When they're going around a corner in a switchback mountain road at night, they want to be able to actually see where they're looking, not the trees on the outside of the turn. So there's a solution for that. If you want to be more visible at night, we can show you the difference between how your bike looks to other drivers with and without a change in what's on the bike. I actually think one of the most effective things we've ever done is what we call a functional lighting contest, which we often do at the BMW MOA National Rally. So after dark, we invite just about anybody that's at the rally to come over to a big open field. And in that open field, everybody gets a chance to point their lights downrange. And we can see what their original headlights did for distance, and then what their bike with auxiliary lights does for distance. Because we've put signs downrange for your visibility distance. So we can, so NHTSA, the regulatory body for lighting safety in the US, has done a bunch of research. They figured out that in order for about 90% of riders to be able to see an obstacle that's coming and react to it and get out of the way, they need to be able to see at least 4 seconds down the road. And so we took the 4-second distance, 10 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour, 30 miles an hour, right up to 70 miles an hour, and put the sign markers down this field. And so everybody gets to see what their sight distance in seconds is, or what their safe driver speed is, assuming you need 4 seconds, with and without their auxiliary lights. And it would actually probably surprise you. A lot of bikes only have a couple of seconds of headlight distance, but if you want to be able to see where you're going, you probably need a little bit more. So it's a good exercise people can do at home with their own bikes, but I've seen a lot of folks walk away from that contest, which is just sort of a friendly thing to do at night, and either change their riding behavior so they ride slower, so they're not outriding their headlight distance, or they go and outfit their bike so that at whatever speeds that they're going, they can see further than the distance that's needed to react and get out of the way.
This kind of has my mind going in different directions because on the motorcycle safety training side of things that I work on, we're, focusing on training and behaviors and things like that. But I guess I've never really thought about the technical side of it. If people's bikes are even capable of, again, like you said, helping them see what they need, what they need to be seen. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I was surprised when we started doing this testing. There's actually a fair number of large adventure motor bikes that only have about 1 second of visibility on low beam and about 2 seconds at highway speed on high beam. It's actually a fun exercise. So at highway speed, 70 miles an hour, yes, you're going about 100 feet per second. So I would encourage folks at home to, on a dark night, just measure out a street or what have you in 100-foot increments. See how many seconds you can see down the road. Can you see 400 feet down the road? If not, you probably can't see far enough to be going 70 miles an hour. So it's a fun little project to do.
So you mentioned going to the BMW MOA rally. You also told me you're going to be at the Tour Tech rally. What are your engineers, developers, salespeople able to kind of gain from being at the rally with the consumers?
How we get out of the lab. So, I mean, we spend all year, in a workshop, kind of drinking our own Kool-Aid and, focusing on the things we think are important. But when we go to those events, which are well attended by some of the most enthusiastic long distance adventure riders in the country, the booth gets swarmed with people saying, hey, this thing you built doesn't really fit my bike. I'm not really happy with this. Or, hey, I'm in this riding situation and I can't see really well. Can you help me adjust what I'm doing? Or, hey, this thing's just too complicated to install. I don't get it. Can you help me install it? Well, short term, we'll help install it. But then we go back and we take all these ideas and we think, how do we make our product solve the problem better? Make it easier to use, make it easier to install, and make sure it doesn't break. And in those real world interactions where we take our design team and they are face to face with the customer, hearing exactly what the person using the thing wants. There's no arguing with that. When one of our salespeople comes back, or even when I come back with an idea, and everybody just looks at me, or some of the other internal folks are like, "Yeah, you talk at us all the time. Yeah, we don't believe you." But when you get 10 customers in a row at a rally saying the same thing, you go back and you fix it. You work on that. You fix that problem.
Yeah, that makes sense for sure. You start thinking, if a bunch of people are saying the same thing, the problem must be me at some point.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I just feel like it really helps you focus on what is important for the people you're trying to do something good for. So there are a lot of things you can fix, but which ones matter? Well, they'll tell you. And it's important to listen no matter what type of product or service you're giving to people.
And also, are they the type that actually reads the directions? Or do they just dive in?
Reads directions. Who reads directions? I mean, that's a nice idea. And I'm 1% of the population that does, but you look at what IKEA does with their directions. They stopped using words. They've got a little, not a stick figure, but a little pudgy, fuzzy figure that just puts things together, and it's just pictures. So we've actually tried to make our instructions as much like IKEA as we possibly can. But, you can't always quite get there. So we've tried to do that and mix it with video highlights of the important steps, and that seems to connect with people a little bit better. But if you read the instructions, I can provide you with exploded parts diagram. So we'll see how long you spend looking at both.
Kind of transitioning gears a little bit. Can you talk about scaling the brands internationally? So what are some challenges with bringing products into different markets when we're talking Europe, Australia, the US? Like, what are those differences or challenges?
Well, boy, when you go international, there are a lot of things you take for granted. If you've mostly been in the U.S. and you sort of assume that everybody that speaks English will probably react with this product the same way, but that's really far off base. If we go to Australia, for instance, we in that market there was a lot more price pressure on lighting products. There were two companies that are really well known that are really low priced. So we had to come up with a way to have some more value based. We also found out that in Australia, they generally aren't really interested in riding at night. There are too many kangaroos. People get into collisions with wild animals very often. So culturally, it's not as high of a priority to be able to see 3/4 of a mile down the road at highway speed. That just seems like a crazy thing. But what people are concerned about is visibility to other drivers during the day. And so in each market, you have to figure out what connects with people, what problem they're actually trying to solve, and then customize. Maybe it's the product, maybe it's the messaging or the experience to what they expect. When you go to Europe, it's much more complex just based on the total number of cultures and languages that are present. I had a harsh awakening when we started doing Google ads in Europe, because in the US, hey, you run some ads. Even in Canada, you just make some ads and you're done. Well, in Europe, there is no auto translate for your ads in Europe. You've got to make an ad version for Spain, for France, for Germany, for Greece, any country you want to be in. You have to create your marketing messages in the local language if you want it to be heard, or at least effective. A lot of people speak English, but they're not going to connect. So we went through a learning curve with figuring out how to translate our ads, and at least in major markets, our promotional emails. And within the website, we had to figure out how to address how to translate the information, because even if somebody's using Google Translate in their browsers, that's not going to help you with SEO in those countries. We eventually, with the help of AI and some native speakers to review and make sure the AI wasn't saying anything crazy, we managed to translate our websites into 20 languages. And so each of those languages is indexed by Google. So it helps us with traffic from each of those cultures. And that's just from the marketing perspective.
Do you guys have warehouses in each different country, or how does the fulfillment end of it work?
In the major markets, we do. So we have facilities that we own and operate in Sweden, in the US, in Korea, and Australia. So that makes some of the logistics in those areas easier. In some of the other major markets like the UK and Europe, we've partnered with a importer and distributor in that country, so that when we're running an e-commerce sale in those countries through our website, it actually goes through those entities, and they fulfill the order, so the customer gets a local experience with shipping and returns, but they get a website that's direct from the brand owner, so the information is current, correct, and it feels more like you're interacting with the brand. If anything, having the localized websites has just helped us move a little bit faster, because we don't have to rely on a long chain of various resellers to get the word out when a new product comes up. We can release it on our main website, and then that sort of pushes everyone to start asking about it at all levels in those regions.
We could probably have 10 episodes on the marketing, the logistics, that whole side of things. But to keep it shorter for our listeners today, if they were considering upgrading their bike for better visibility or safety, like, what's your first recommendation? Like, where should they start?
If you want to be seen from the front and see further in clear conditions, getting a set of white driving lights close to the vertical height of your original headlight is a really great move. And connecting them to your high beam circuit so that they automatically cycle up and down with your original high beam switch makes it easy to not get lost in forgetting what button to push on your motorcycle. If you want to be seen more from the rear, the first thing probably want to do is an auxiliary LED brake light. That's, again, tied into your computer or tied into your bike correctly. If you've got a BMW, Ducati, KTM, or Harley, you probably need a CAN bus controller so that you don't cook the wires. And if you really want to be seen, adding some selective yellow, that bright neon yellow color on the forward side of your bike, probably down low on the forks, is a really good move for being seen or noticed by other drivers on the road. A lot of the traffic studies have shown that because it's a less common color, drivers will notice it, look, instead of just sort of ignoring it as background.
I love that. Really good tips. Things that I have not considered, but will be going forward. Can you tell people where they can connect with you or connect with the brands?
Absolutely. So the DENALI Electronics.com website is where you can check out our motorcycle products. Vision X Off-Road is our brand for side-by-side and 4x4, where we're applying a lot of the same approaches for people with those sorts of vehicles. You can find me by emailing eric.stephens@us.brownwatson.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Eric, for joining me, and thanks to everybody for tuning in to Momentum. This has been a production of High Gear Success. If you want to connect or recommend a guest, head to momentummotorsportspodcast.com. Until next time, keep the momentum rolling.